While I look for the share screen button, I'm gonna say hi to everyone. And as I talked as I said to Bruno, I wasn't sure what to talk about. There's so many things we could talk about, but since I don't really know you, and I think you don't know me, I thought of making like a short story of how I got to do the things I do now, because I think you can go on my website or on Instagram and see a lot of bright, colorful images, but maybe to understand where how did that started, like where does it come from? I thought of telling the little story of all the things that I put together to do what I do. So I'm gonna look for the share screen button. Okay, we are here. Do you see my screen? Yeah, okay. Oh, Bruno, I don't hear. Okay. Uh, okay, so I've always liked drawing all my life, but I never knew what to do with it. And I figure it would be something in between art or graphic design. But when I finished high school and I had to go to university, I would consider those two paths. But to give you, oh wait, how? Let me see if I can. Wait, I have a technical problem. Okay, yeah, okay, we're so. So when I was starting university, I was in Argentina in 2001, and it was a bad time for us. It was a huge crisis. Like if you can Google just those two words, you know, the year and the country, and you will understand that the adult world that I was stepping into was kind of hard. So you know, I couldn't just think about art and not think about what I'm going to do for a living. So I went on and studied graphic design in university, and I learned to understand colors and shapes in a different way. Like you know, they carry specific messages, and you need to understand how they work in order to deliver that message. Like you know, it's like image is communication, and while in art images could be anything, you know, you could just use whatever colors you wanted, mix them and see what happens. But in design, you know, colors are chosen very specifically to communicate things. And so I would get a more structured vision of images, which was good. But I still exercise art and the freedom of art in my free time. So I started working with paper, which is like the most basic medium, you know, you can have, an ink and those kind of basic materials. And I also did comics, and I would learn how to draw a character in different positions, and and most important, how to make compositions to tell a story. And since back at that time, there was no social media and paper is something that you touch, the way of sharing it was face to face in my city, you know. So I would participate in a very underground comic community, and it was fun. But I also had a digital pen, so I started drawing in the computer. In the beginning, I tried to replicate what I could already do in paper, and I got better results in the screen, because at that time I didn't know how to work with acrylics or oils. So I was always struggling to cover the white of the paper, you know, with cheap markers and stuff like that. So the screen allowed me to really got to work with the images more like I envisioned them in my head, you know, and not being limited by the tools. And eventually I would understand that I could draw without lines, And I just started playing with volumes, you know, with different tones of gray, like pushing and pulling volume. It felt like I would be sculpting, and so I could really focus on the shapes and then move on to colors and lights. And eventually I would feel that I was neglecting all those graphic elements that I really enjoyed from comics and graphic designs. So every once in a while, I would go back to doing these very flat images, you know, playing with these abstract elements. And I would spend my whole life balancing that three-dimensional and flat graphic elements, you know. And I don't have a formula, so I would explore different ways of achieving that mixture. Like in this case, you know, you have like three-dimensional characters, but with these 2D graphic symbols. Well, this is obviously a wall, but as you can see, when I painted walls, I applied the same method in my head that when I started painting in the computer, which was, I can draw this in paper, so I will try to do this in the computer. Now I can do this in the computer, I will try to do it in a wall. That was basically how I did things. But back to the timeline where I was telling you what I did. So back to the early 2000s, before social media and Wi-Fi, all these digital drawings that I was doing in my free time, they would be confined to my computer. So I created a website where they could, you know, all my characters could live and be visited. And I called that website the Land of the Little Animals, which is Animalitoland. I had no idea that that name would stick with me forever. At that time, it was just a website. And that allowed me to share my work with the world, which now it doesn't sound like much, but at that time, for me, it was huge to start speaking in English and communicated with people from other countries that would comment on the things I was doing. And I was just a kid in my parents' house with a computer. It was crazy. So when I started looking for jobs, my first attempt was in the book industry, because everyone would tell me like, oh yeah, I can see your drawings like in a children's book or something. And I tried. I mean, I printed a portfolio and contacted every publisher I found in Buenos Aires, but nothing happened. I would go to meetings to be in touch with other illustrators, and I noticed that everyone was older than me at that time, right? And it all felt kind of formal, and I figured, you know, this industry has been working great for years. Like they got it all figured out. They don't really need a 20-year-old kid with weird ideas and a weird style. So I just put a pin on the books and started working as a designer. My first designer jobs were horrible, like an illegal workshop doing fake clothes and horrible things. But I was happy to be working with the computer and the programs and everything. And then animation came into my life in an unexpected way. In 2006, there was this film company that was doing a feature film, an animated feature film, and they needed people. And there were no schools at that time, no animation schools, because there was no animation industry. So it was a circle. So what this studio did was they made an open call for kids all over the country to send them their portfolios. And they selected a bunch of young talents. The title is amazing. And And so I was selected, and they let us in. They opened the doors of the studio, and the people who was working there basically showed us what they were doing, and that's how we learned. And it was great because we got to see the whole process from pencil sketches to post-production. And I think that having that view of the whole process allowed me to understand what things I needed to have in consideration when doing my 2D characters, because I knew that how would they be transformed into 3D and then animated. So, you know, it's like I wasn't just thinking about my piece of work, but I was thinking of the stages that would come after that. And even though like illustration or drawing was not really recognized as part of graphic design, which was what I was studying at that time, I would totally apply the concepts I learned in university, such as exploring different shapes to find a good fit to what you want to communicate. Like in this example, I was asked to design a non-traditional snowman ornament. And while I was doing the style search, I wasn't just trying nice shapes. I was, you know, looking for what kind of personality would those shapes communicate? You know, how would they talk and move and everything. Bruno, I don't know if I am covering the screen with the. I have like the strip with all the names and faces, and I don't know if it's covering. Like for me, it's covering the screen, but I don't know if you see it.
For me, it's okay. And if it's something that everyone else is experiencing as well, we can just click speaker view on the top right-hand corner. And then you just see Graciela and the talk. So that way it really doesn't cover.
But you don't see the strip covering the screen.
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
Okay.
I have speaker view. So in that case, I only see your small screen, and I can even put it smaller.
Perfect.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. Because I know these images, but okay, sorry. So yeah, so back to applying these design concepts, you know, on shapes and how they communicate stuff. So even if I would have a restricted shape, I would still look for ways of playing with the elements of that shape to still explore expressive possibilities, you know, with this Brussels sprout, you know, like I was exploring how it would be shy or not, and also of course this having the ability to draw like an environment with light and everything would also help develop the mood of you know of the character. So like it's what you're trying to communicate with this character. And also thanks to digital drawing I was able to express particular light behaviors or textures that would not only apply to the character but to their own personal environment, like these soft bubbles displaying some sort of white ink in movement in this abstract digital world. I was very comfortable working with all these things in digital. And back to when I was looking for a job, digital media opened up a whole new horizon in between art and graphic design and animation. And I think it all had to do with interaction. And since it was new media, I'm talking about website, apps, video games. It was all like in development. So you wouldn't find many experts or previous examples to use as reference. Everyone was learning and experimenting, and that made it really fun, a really fun time to work in design. And starting by my job description, like I would make up this graphic artist title, because I thought like I wasn't a graphic designer or an artist, so I kind of put those two words in there and hope people would understand what I did. And also I would look for studios that I thought they were doing cool projects. And when looking for the contact form, the contact information, I noticed that many of them still use fax. And so I would ask them to receive the fax, and I would just send them these images. I was just trying weird stuff to surprise people and do fun things. And I would, for example, do web design. This is not the best, but like, I don't know if you remember that time where Flash was all over the internet, and like you would have these weird websites where you never knew how to navigate. Everything was animated. And I was working as a designer at that time, and I did fun projects like this. That was, in this site you could record an insult, and by saving it, it would be added to the song, which contain all the previous courses recorded by previous visitors. So it was a like sort of a plaything made from an audio post-production studio. And I really like that playful spirit of doing things to play and to have fun. And also this was in Argentina, and we really love cursing. It's just like we are the opposites of Canadians. And their polite way of talking, we curse, and we are very creative at cursing. So this would be an example of web design. And if Flash animation opened up the web design world, the arrival of tablets and smartphones opened up a whole new world. Like, there were so many things you could do with apps, and I was really happy to design interfaces and also create the artistic content to put in them. I got a chance to do ebooks, although I didn't love it. First, because we had a short production time, and also then I had like this weird restraining feedback that I never managed to understand. Like, if the shirt of the monkey was short and you could see the belly, I would be sexualizing the monkey. And then the frog legs were too skinny, and I was like, but it's a frog. And the piglet would look like, they told me it looked fat and dumb. So I was kind of like fat shaming him, and I was like, what, it looks so cute. I mean, I love this little pig. And so I would try to satisfy this feedback that I didn't really understand, and still be accused of, like, the little bunny looked like a bully for some reason, I don't know. So I never really got to understand that market of books for children. But I also got the chance to work with games that were more related to animation, because I got to design backgrounds and characters. And as a curious project, I designed this digital pet that would be an iPhone case shaped like a teddy bear, but it had an app. The face of the bear was in the app, so it would be interactive and you could play games with it. And it was awesome because there wasn't anything like that in the market, and I got to design everything, and even work with my husband, because the animation of the face was done by him. So it was pretty interesting project. And besides all those kind of things that I did as a designer, I was freelancing, doing character design for commercials and short animations. And I would get the chance to see my little characters all over the city, which was awesome. And at the same time, I would be always doing like side projects related to art, participating in group exhibitions and exploring art toys and being active in a culture that was evolving day by day. One of the character art events that I participated in teamed up with one of the first 3D printers in Argentina, and I got to have a three-dimensional version of my character. You know, there was some really interesting stuff going on. But so I had a fixed job as a designer. Then I would get home and start freelancing for animation. And somehow in between, I would find time to do my art projects. And that meant that I would spend like 20 hours every day in front of the computer designing, you know. And so at some point, I just wanted to turn off the screen and get out to see the sun and do something different. So I have a friend, Jackham, who was into the hip hop culture at that time, and she knew where to get spray paint and how to use it. So we went out together and had fun in the sun. And I remember having this feeling of waiting for the weekend, because I would be all week doing these designs and being told to make it taller, make it shorter, make it thinner. And then I would wait for the weekend to just go out and paint whatever I wanted without anyone telling me what to do. And also sharing art became a mixture between face-to-face and digital, because I created my first Facebook account to connect with other painters and meet up. And it worked. I made new friends. I ended up with a big group of friends who shared also a background in design, animation, and we got together and learned from each other. And my neighborhood was full of vacant lots, so it was easy for me to go out and paint whatever without really disturbing anyone. It was a great place to start, but now most of these walls are gone and replaced by new apartments and craft beer bars, as it usually happens. So at this time, we were doing spontaneous pieces. We would, you know, just go out with friends and have fun with paint. And sometimes a piece could last 24 hours, because after you left, someone else would come and paint over it. And so the bigger and better you painted, the more chances it had to survive. So we used whatever tool we could to achieve that, you know, like a 6-meter extension pole and climb into trash cans or even a log, whatever we could find. And eventually I switched from abandoned places to people's houses, which had more chances of being preserved, as it involved people living around the painting. So this allowed me to start painting more elaborate scenes. I would take my time, you know, and dedicate all my love, and I would hope that the next day it would still be there. But that also made me closer to the neighbors, you know, being in closer to their homes instead of in an abandoned lot. So I remember the first time an old lady told me that she would walk by that spot every day to go to the market, buy groceries, and that she was very happy to have like that cheerful stop in her daily routine. You know, she told me, this is like, I walk here every day. And that is when I realized that, you know, I was doing something that was having an impact on the daily life of people. So it was to see that with your own eyes. It's really for me it changed it all, because I felt like it was more powerful than any of the other stuff that I was doing. And a lot of people noticed it was big, and street art bloomed. Some friends and I were invited to paint like 100 meters of a subway station. And it was the first time that street artists were given that task that was usually done by traditional muralists. And since street art isn't something that you study, but you picked it up in the street, so there was people from all kinds of different backgrounds getting into a very mainstream place. It was, I realized that it was something big happening. And through paint, I also met a friend, Davo, who had a cultural space and invited me to do a solo show. And it was the first time that I just grabbed all my stuff and put it in one place, made some big installations, and everyone I knew was there. It was a total blast. And so I had finally achieved a balance between my designer work and my personal art projects. Everything was going great. And so what do? You leave everything behind and you go to another continent. That's how life works for me. It wasn't dramatic. My husband and I both wanted to explore the world, grow, see what else was there. And so we started a long line of paperwork and job searches to get that chance, to travel and see what else was out there. And we landed in Madrid. And since I've already taken a huge step by leaving everything behind, I decided to give art a chance. I would still look for designer jobs like for the first year or two, because I was super insecure. But I kind of like put it all in art. And I mean, Europe is a really good place to work in art. But I was new in there, and I knew nobody. Like, I had no friends, no contacts, anything. But I painted in the street, so that's where I started looking for friends. And the line between legal and illegal art in Argentina was very blurry. Police have all the things to worry about. So, there was a lot of freedom. But in here, in Europe, especially in Madrid, where I was living, the police were a little bit more present. And I learned that there was undercover police that we had to be aware of, and a lot of things that for me sounded like a movie, kind of, yeah, like something I wasn't familiar with. But luckily I had friends who, like, we would go out and someone would be watching while another one was doing their thing. It was a different vibe. So I started doing smaller things. The illegal street art became really smaller and faster. And I tried things like stencil, paste up. I ended up using crayons because I thought, they look innocent. It's like, if I encounter the police and they see I have a crayon, how mad could they be? But the legal street art became huge. I started looking for street art festivals in Europe, and just doing the same thing I did before with the design, just contacting them, showing them my work, letting them know I was there. I felt like the fact that I was in Europe was something that I had to make the most of, because traveling inside there is so easy. Distances are so short. So I started having this really incredible opportunities to paint, big scale. And the technical aspects, because I get a lot of questions about, how can you paint that big? You learn as everything else by doing it, but maybe the most difficult part for me was dealing with all that alone, because I was not in the neighborhood sharing paint with my friends anymore. So that was a lot to process. And in that introspective moments, I started paying attention paying more attention to the neighbors. In this particular image I'm showing you, one day a neighbor came up to me and said, "I don't like what you're doing. I live just like my bedroom window is just in front of the face of this character, and every time when I wake up I just see this and I think it's evil because it has horns." And of course it wasn't finished. I was like, people have a lot of impressions and feelings when you start doing the piece, but then when the piece is finished, sometimes they change their minds. But I took the time to first to realize the responsibility that I was holding in that moment, because I was painting something so big that would affect a lot of people that lived there. And second, that I thought it was important to really take that time to speak with the neighbor and explain. In that case, I explained her the whole idea of what I was trying to paint and what it meant, and and we even found some similarities between what I was trying to express and what they were living in there in the community. So in the end, we became friends. She invited me to her house. Everything was great. But I understand it was important to, for neighbors to not feel like some foreigner just comes to put this strange piece of thing and leave, but know what it's about and participate and feel like that painting belongs to them. And fun fact, that neighbor, who is now my friend, she sends me pictures of the wall in winter, in summer, with rain, with snow. It's awesome. And another thing with working international is that there are different kinds of difficulty that are not related to paint, because they're more like psychological. Like, just to get you in front of the wall, sometimes you might need to jump into one or more flights. Last time I went to China, I was in Argentina, and I had like 30 hours of planes. And that adds a layer of responsibility, because you can't help wondering if you are worth the trouble. Not you, but your art. It's like, okay, I better do something spectacular, because someone is going through, the trouble of getting me through all this to be there. So what am I going to do? And then also, most of the time, you don't know what you're dealing with until you're in front of the wall, with the clock ticking, because once you arrive at the wall, you have to start painting. You usually don't have a lot of time to paint. And many times the measurements you got were wrong, or the reference pictures you got were like this one you're seeing here, it's distant in perspective. You can't really know what that wall looks like, so you just, you have to figure out how to deal with that. And regarding the cultural differences, I rely on my most primal feelings, which I believe we all share. When I went to the Arctic Circle, which is this image, I found that their natives' relationship with animals and their clothes, language, looks similar to the South American native culture. And the wall was symmetrical. It had a ladder in the middle for some reason. I think it was like a parking lot or something. And so it felt perfect to paint this, and I think I didn't need to go into super deep explanations. It's just a really loving message, yeah. And oh wait, yeah, I remember what I was gonna say, that I think traditional art functions in a small environment of people who specifically go to see the piece and have some information to interpret it. like galleries, let's say, or museums. But street art is for the general public who just happens to walk by and probably thinking about other stuff. And I happen to have some experience working with a language that was already out there on daily life. You know, the colors, the shapes, everything in advertising is designed to catch people's attention. So what happens if I use those tools, but once I got your attention, I don't sell you anything? Yeah, I just share a message that needs no word. This painting is in front of the Shanghai Stock Exchange in Pudong, and it was my first time in China. And while I was painting it, the first days, I felt so uncomfortable because I wasn't getting any contact with the neighbors, because it was like a very busy financial district. And it wasn't until the last day that a man approached and told me, you know, this is a very busy area. Everyone here is stressed about work, probably thinking about, you know, money and all the things that, you know, all the pressure. And I think this painting is going to make some people, you know, maybe think about their loved ones and get in touch with their feelings. And I think this is a very nice thing that is happening here. And that it was the last day, and I felt so relieved because, you know, I've been giving it all there, and I felt like it was for nothing. But it is very important for me that at least one person lets me know that, not that, oh, I like your painting, but more like, okay, this is really working. It makes sense what you're doing. You know, that's what is important, because I don't just paint for me or to take a picture and post it on Instagram. I really like the whole point of painting in the street is that it's something that involves the people who live by. And this case, I was supposed to paint it in the same neighborhood the next year, but I got some problems getting approval because I got feedback that the red cape and the yellow umbrella could be somehow related to the Dalai Lama. So we could go into some political problem scenario. And trust me, I am not interested at all in political symbols. And so, you know, it was absolutely not my intention. But so after some back and forward, and I tried to change the design, and it didn't work. And finally, the organizers got approval from a different district, and I was able to paint the original design, which was this. And just to be sure that, you know, the right message was getting out, which was basically a concept of helping each other. I made this little comic, and I put it into this small pocketbook, developing the same concept that I was painting. And I asked for a volunteer to be at the base of my lift, handing it over to curious people who approached. And also I asked the assistant to take notes on the people's reaction. I try to do this every time I can, because when doing big scale projects, I am usually all day up on the lift and I am out of reach. So if people want to, you know what is going on, they can't speak to me. So I still wanted to make sure, you know, there was somebody there, and with this comic was like an excuse to get a conversation into what the work is about. And so I think that is my designer head telling me to make sure the communication is working, you know. And last but not least, I approached the world of galleries. I work with Swinton in Madrid, who are lovely people close to the street art community. And I took the time to prepare a series of paintings, working with acrylics and oils. But it was the first time that I just really worked on one concept and try to develop it in different images. It was a very introspective time, just me alone in a room with all the paintings. It was really interesting, because when I started painting in the street, it was a rebellion against my work life. But when painting became my work, I couldn't keep doing the same thing. So I used all my previous experience as a base and continue looking for new paths. I took the chaotic energy from the street into the studio, into the canvases, and then all the patience and attention from the canvases back into the public space. And I am still at that point, searching for new paths. And I left Spain. I moved to Canada 1 year ago. And after some very agitated years, everything seemed to stop. First, because of the Canadian winter, which was very hard for my little Argentine body. I wouldn't go out. I would just be inside painting and cursing, all this Canadian snow and cold. And then, of course, when the winter was over, we had the pandemic. So here we are. I'm going to stop sharing. Hello. And so, yeah, this is where we are at right now, this very curious stage. Bruno, if you want to open up the mic and join me.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. So I for those of you who joined while the conversation and the art talk was going, if you want, you can ask some questions. Either raise your hand on the raise your hand option on Zoom, or just write the question in the chat room. I'll pose the question to Graciela. I actually do have a few questions already here lined up for you, Graciela. So the first question is, do you ever revisit old characters?
Some particular times, yeah, like now when I had to do this talk. Yes, not usually, just like a few times in my life. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you. And so next question, do you find drawing for kids harder than drawing for adults?
Sorry, I just got my head thinking the other question. There was a change that I am going through that right now, which is that I used to do completely new images every time I had to do a painting in whatever media. Like I would start from scratch. And in the last months, I think I've been trying to work on something different, which is trying to develop a sort of character that has to do with aged color, like my old. I call them I'm surrounded by old characters, because I'm trying to really use not one character, but try to work on one thing, so that I can then use that to go deeper. And so, yeah, I am changing that. Sorry, it was an interesting question. And the other one was?
The other one was if it's easier to draw for adults than to draw for kids, because you have to go through more struggles.
Yeah, the thing is that for me there is no difference. I consider myself a big kid. So I struggle a lot with that, because I've had some particular jobs, like the ones I showed you, with that weird criticism about everything from the characters, that could be harmful for kids. But so I know sometimes when dealing with kids market, there's a lot of things that you have to have into consideration. And that is why I don't like the kids market. I really think I struggle with convincing adults that colorful and happy things can be for ourselves. Sorry. But yeah, it's a struggle. I mean, we need more things that look for kids, but for us, the adults, I think. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So next question is, your murals and your drawings are very colorful. You use a lot of color. Do you have a favorite color and why?
No, I don't like all of them. The brightest, the better. Yeah. But I think about that a lot, and it has to do with the previous question. Like the other day, I was at the beach and I was seeing this old woman carrying a very pink, brightful bucket, and I thought, like, my immediate thought was, she must be with her grandkid or something, because it looked like a kid's bucket. And then I didn't see any kid around, and I thought, why am I thinking that bucket is not hers? And it was because it was so bright and colorful. And yeah, it's like, if you think about it, it's like in products, like anything basically, the difference between the adult model and the kids version is that all the kids get the brightest colors and the more fun designs, and we get the gray boring stuff. Why is that? I don't know. I want to change that. I'm all into colors. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So next question, is it easier to work alone or with more people around you?
Oof, that's so difficult. I always work alone, because since I am always on the go traveling, I can't take friends or even an assistant that would come with me, because I'm always changing scenario. So I had to learn to work alone. But sometimes, if I was offered an assistant, I would I would spend more time trying to put the chaos that I have in my head and organize it into words, so I could tell somebody else, please paint that part blue. It would take me so long that I would just like do it myself. But I know that that is no good. It's not good. And so I yeah, I would like to open up and try to work with more people, but at the time I can't. And of course, a different thing is if instead of doing a piece of work, I am just having fun. That is something that I love, and I really miss having friends in the neighborhood to go out and paint, because painting with other people, with not a specific timeline, how do you say, when you, like, if you don't have to deliver something at certain time, but you just can have fun and see what other are painting and learn from each other. That is really nice. But it's nicer where it's not work related, I think. Yeah.
Thank you. I do have here another question. So the question is, you've worked with a multitude of art forms so far. Is there something left for you to do or you want to do in the future?
I hope so. I really do. Yeah, I mean, the whole point of this talk, I think, was what I wanted to communicate was that it's not that, I liked photography, so I went to, I studied photography and now I am a photographer. But it's just that I kind of always did a lot of different things at the same time, and I tried to mix them, but I wasn't always sure where to look at. It's like for me I mean, nowadays street art, we all know is huge, but when I started painting, I didn't decided, I am going to become a street artist. I just needed to go out and paint in the sun. It was something that I felt like I need to do. So my plan is to keep on exploring, and that is actually when meeting other people works. I mean, not as having an assistant or someone to do the exact same thing as me, but as knowing people who have different kind of projects, so I can collaborate with different kind of stuff. That is where I find the interesting new perspectives, you know. I think, yeah, and I would love to do you know, some, yeah, I have something in mind, like that involves video games, and maybe someday I will get to the books, and have a happy story. Yeah, there's a lot of things still to do. Yeah, and of course, sorry, the media, we don't know, it has changed so much. There's so much, many new stuff, platforms, that we're, so who knows what new platforms we'll have in a few years. So yes, of course, there's a lot of things.
Complete sense. Thank you very much. So yeah, here actually I have another question. So Claire specifically asked me to say that you have beautiful art, that it makes her happy, and it's, yeah, very colorful and bright. If I may ask you, what got you to move into Canada or Vancouver? Is it something specific, or because you want to do something out of your comfort zone?
Yeah, both. Yeah. Like we had this very ambitious plan with my husband to basically go around the world and see what things are, you know, out there. And so our plan was to go to Europe. That is kind of like, you know, first step is checked, and then we wanted to explore North America. We weren't sure, but since we found a balance. My husband works in animation, and so we found a balance between, you know, in Canada there's the animation industry, there's a lot of things going on, and so we found like, and I like, the balance is that while he works in a studio, I kind of orbit around and see what's going on around. I don't want to go to a specific place, you know. So yeah, the reason why Madrid and Vancouver was because of my husband's work in animation. But for me, it was like Europe and Canada or North America, but I haven't had that much of a chance to explore all of Canada and the States. Now it's not a good moment, but the plan was to explore a little bit. And then, you know, we still have like there's a few continents that we haven't been to. So there's a if someday soon we get to travel again, we will probably keep on traveling for a few more years. Yeah, it's basically curiosity. Yeah.
Thank you. So I have here next question. Was there a specific place you've painted that grew closer to your heart, and why?
So difficult. I don't know. It's because it has to do with the specific moments I share with the neighbors, you know. So maybe it's not yeah, and I must say I haven't, it's like the other way around. I haven't had bad experiences. Like even the weirdest one, which was my first trip to China, that guy that on the last, because I had the feeling that I was not connecting with, you know, maybe the way of life, I don't know. And then the last day that man said that thing that made sense, I felt like, oh, okay, maybe, you know, it's not so different, you know. Maybe I just didn't run into the people before who could tell me that. But really, like, you know, I think I don't want to be so naive and say that the whole world is one big home, but I think that, you know, it kind of changes on where you're looking at, where you're focusing your attention to. And since I really speak from the heart, you know, I am always very lucky finding at least one or two people who are very open, and I get some wonderful conversations. Like really deep personal things that people maybe feel that they can share with me because of what I paint. And I've, yeah, I wouldn't choose one, because it's like I have so many stories of people, you know, that it's like for a brief moment. I think that this experience of painting in the street really led me to think in this naive way that you know, everyone really, you know, wants to share love, and that you can basically go to any point of, I mean, I've been to really distant places in the world, and I've always found some points to connect with the people. So yeah, it's, I couldn't choose one.
Thank you. And here I have a last question, and still, please feel free to ask more questions if you have them. So this next question is asking if when you go to a place, do you already have a backstory for your character, or you draw inspiration from the place and the country you're visiting?
No, I usually, because of the production times, it wouldn't be possible for me to, I mean, I don't know how long in advance I should be in a community to be able to understand their way of life and to be able to portray their culture. I don't think there's time enough for me to do such a thing. So that is why, like, there are a few rare occasions, like the picture I showed about the Sami people. That was the, like, I was in the Arctic, and I investigated and I found that, and I kind of painted two very distinctive um, yeah, people. But I usually don't do that because it's this thing that I don't want to be disrespectful with trying to paint something that I don't understand. You know, I'm not going to be able to paint you, you know, so I would instead try to think of a concept, usually based on a feeling, and try to share that feeling, you know, that I suspect people are going to be able to recognize. So I think of the design previously based on that feeling, and also because, you know, once I arrived, it's like that thing that the clock is ticking and you have to start painting, and you don't have time to sit and wonder about life and art. So I do that at home before, and it takes me almost the same amount of time to prepare that sketch and think about life and art than to then paint it. You know, people think that you start painting when you grab the brush, but it's not like that. You spend so much time thinking, you know, about the concepts. And sometimes I like to leave some room for improvising, but that wouldn't change the overall look of the wall. Like there is one very nice project that I did in Estonia, where I had all the, you know, the design, everything was approved, and then when I started painting, I started observing these neighbors that would walk by the wall every day, very, very colorful characters. And so what I did is I painted like a very simple and graphic version of these real people. I painted them in the clothes of the giant characters that were already in my design. So, you know, I like to do those kind of things, you know, to put something, but I wouldn't base the whole work on improvising, because that is, I mean, I did it once in United States, but I had to explain them that, because when I arrived, it was completely improvised, and they offered me a gigantic wall, and I was like, no, I cannot improvise a big scale mural in a few days, you know, with no plans and no paint and anything. So I switched to a smaller wall, and that I could improvise. But usually, no.
So here I do have another question, Graciela. So do you have anything planned for Vancouver, a mural for the festival, for example?
Yes, I am working on that right now. Yeah. When I arrived, the first thing I did was, look for what's going on in Vancouver. And I contacted the festival, but the festival was ending when I arrived. So I had to wait 1 year. And now we are here. And I don't know if I'm going to tell you, although I don't know if this is approved. Maybe it's not approved, and I will have to change the whole thing, but I am planning on working with feelings. And I happen to have something here that it's a work in progress. And it's not the sketch of the mural that I can absolutely not show you. But I can tell you my plan, which is to, I'm going to try and paint a very calm and balanced character that has, some dark feelings, but also some light, which is a concept that I am working. Wait, I'm going to show you some of the things I'm working with. So, I have this concept of, balance between light and dark, in a kind of a spiritual way, right? And so I thought of, in addition to this character that I will be painting, I thought of doing the scene, the little comic, but I thought of doing like different stages of, like, mental stages, from dark and light, and I thought of, and I would love to hear your opinion about it because it's a work in progress idea. I thought of sharing this with people and invite them to name these feelings. I mean, not exactly this feeling, but to investigate and think about, like, what kind of what words come up into your mind when you see this, or how do, or this, how do you feel, your body, your mind, how do you feel? Because I realized that I had a very limited vocabulary, and we usually have, like, how are you feeling? Bad, good, you know and there is so much more into that, and the more you know, the better you're able to understand what you're going through. So I thought of, maybe I will start sharing this at the wall, but I don't know how I'm going to do that. I need a volunteer. Do I hear a volunteer somewhere? No, but maybe I will use social media also to share this, and to ask people to share their words, maybe in different languages. There are some terms that are not translated to every language. And I have this nice idea of just very subtly add those words into the mural, like a background thing. It's not going to change the whole design, but they're still going to be there, some in the dark areas and some in the light ones. It's I don't know, it's something that I am working on these days.
Okay, thank you very much. I think so. So far, I don't have any more questions, but I can volunteer to name some of those feelings.
You
It's
would
a
be great, because I need someone who can speak to people, really, get them talking and sharing those feelings.
Yeah, well, we have the word saudade in Portuguese, right? That it's really not translatable. So actually, one of those drawings actually brought me to that word, actually. So
Oh my
I will
God.
tell you
I
afterwards.
am writing it down right
Yeah.
now, Saudade.
Yeah, that word for those of you might not know, just before we log off. So saudade is a word in Portuguese. So I'm from Portugal, and it's a feeling that it's usually described as a longing feeling for something, and because that word was created mostly to describe the wives of the explorers back in the 13th, 15th, 14th century, that they
Wow.
went to the sea, so they felt this feeling of longing for the husband, for the son, for the brother, that they didn't know if he would come back after the journey to try to discover the world.
Wow.
So that feeling is also very connected to the fado, to our Portuguese kind of song and way of singing that it's very nostalgic. It's a very
But I thought that because I thought the difference between, let's say in English, homesick and saudade was that saudade had something like nice into it, but maybe it has to do with the song, like because I've always heard it in songs.
Yeah.
So when
so that is mostly the feeling of longing, of not knowing exactly what the world is going to bring. So it's something that it's much bigger than being I miss you. It's much bigger than missing someone, because there's this feeling of longing, of despair, of nostalgia, all mixed and piling together into just one word. So for me, the feeling, the drawing that you showed me was the one that he had a dark cloud on top. So it's kind of like that longing feeling of you as a bright person, positive person, having that feeling of longing and not knowing what tomorrow will bring. So yeah.
Wow. Well, I will definitely write that down. But I think it's a topic, that it goes on a really deep investigation field that I love to share it, because that's the thing. It's not something that I can investigate on myself, but it's so much more interesting when you open up.
It means different things to different people, but that's the core. But of course, then you can interpret it as you go. It's kind of like art, right? Language is an art as well. So thank you, Graciela, and thank you all for joining us today. I will be sharing as well the video later on. I recorded the talk. No one will be showing, just Graciela and of course the artwork. So then I can send you the link as well. And have a wonderful long weekend if you're in Canada. Have a wonderful Friday, and we'll see each other in 2 weeks.
Wait, before you cut, I want to say too, first, if I would love to hear from you, like these words. I know that I haven't explained the project very correctly because it's still on development, but once I get all the approval and everything, I would love to hear, because this is going to be my first chance to connect really, with Vancouverites in a deep level. So I really hope you can help me and participate. And also a thing that I didn't really talk to in the talk is that I am doing this little pocket books with drawings and stuff. I've been doing it, and also like before, because of this thing about the dark clouds, and all these feelings. I work a lot with that, and I did these comics also for a newsletter that I am doing, which is like, if you're curious, I will invite you to subscribe, because it is not the newsletter where I said, oh, I'm having an exhibition or some prints for sale. It's not like that. It's like what I'm doing is I am, just really finding through email a place to share all these thoughts and images in a deeper way, because I only use Instagram as a social media. I don't use Facebook, and Instagram is only one picture and a very short text. So I found in the email, a place to really share a lot. And also I had some wonderful feedback, because when people write back, it's not public. So I found that people really opened up and told me some wonderful things, because it was like some friends sharing letters. So I also invite you, if you're curious and want to jump in this thing, to subscribe. It's like on the website. If you go to the about, you will eventually find it. But it's fun. It's a fun experiment. I don't know where it's going to lead me to, but it's something that I'm doing, and it's been great. Yeah. That's it.
Okay, so thank you. And before logging off, I just have Chrissy is saying that she subscribes to your newsletter, and she wholeheartedly recommends it to all the other listeners. So I also do subscribe to your newsletter. So if any of you wants to check, so you have on the web page that you've signed, you have a link also directing you to to Graciela's webpage, and then you can find more information there as well. And yet again, thank you all so very much. Thank you, Graciela. You've been wonderful.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
And see each other very soon. And thank you. Bye.
Okay. Bye. Thanks.